ahead.
Okay, SB 902. This would allow city councils under the guise of somehow selling this as a local control. It would allow them to overturn citizen-initiated, voter-approved growth or zoning limitations. The first part of this, SB 902, is very concerning because it would reorder the hierarchy of land use and zoning laws and take away potentially the ultimate power of the public at the ballot box to have initiatives or referenda control the land use decision-making process as the public sees fit. This would allow cities to override those types of prior decisions. So you would have an extremely destabilizing effect, and you would undercut the public's, again, reasonable expectations for what the land use development process is supposed to be in a community. And a lot of people, the majority of people, move to certain areas with expectations about what those areas offer, and they make choices based upon what decisions have been made, with the understanding that those decisions are not just going to be willy-nilly thrown out the window, especially when those decisions arise out of voter and activities. So this goes back to the Topanga case and how zoning is basically a type of contract. And effectively what I see in these bills is a massive breach of contract. It is the undermining of everyone's reasonable expectations and a continuity and a predictability and a harmony where each person in the community has given up certain rights and certain benefits in order to achieve that more global workability of our communities. So SB 902 would allow the city to override these voter mandated initiatives. So it's very undemocratic. There's a big question whether it would survive a constitutional challenge. But the other thing that is disturbing is that it says that the city can rezone any parcel for up to 10 units, and those will be 10 luxury units because that's what the market would drive. There's no requirement for any kind of affordable housing. And it talks about that the city can rezone any parcel. But you might think, okay, well, that's on a parcel by parcel basis. It's not going to be a vast tsunami of change, but necessarily so. There's something called an overlay zone. So what would happen if a city council decided to impose an overlay zone atop all of the existing zoning so that in effect every single parcel simultaneously is rezoned to allow for up to 10 units of luxury housing? That is a gift by these legislators to allow pretty much anywhere 10 units of luxury affordable housing. The bill also uses this language that is very elastic, making whatever restrictions there are, I think basically window dressing. You know, phrases like high opportunity or jobs rich, or this one is my favorite, quote, associated with positive educational outcomes. How do you possibly define or limit that? You know, my dad had a TV. So if he lived next door, is this whole community now associated with positive educational outcomes? The language that is used here is so deliberately broad, vague, ambiguous, undefined, that it can be stretched to fit or accommodate any geographic area, basically. So rather than creating limitations or creating boundaries, what it does is it erases limitations and it erases boundaries. And so 902 is, again, problematic. And of course, it would eliminate CEQA. So, you know, you have the double whammy there of destroying existing zoning, creating massive incentives for destabilization, putting more units, which would be not affordable in areas that are probably already straining in terms of their infrastructure, bursting it. And on top of everything else, the cherry on top is that there would be no CEQA review. Everything would be ministerial, meaning by right, and there would be no opportunity for the public to have a say in these massive changes to their communities that would be imposed upon them without even the CEQA process for there to be hopefully some accountability. So basically, everything would be thrown out the window, and we are going to be in very deep trouble if things like SB 902 are allowed to go forward.
Robert, as host, I'm going to squeeze this question in right now. Scott Wiener has been acting baffled by this resistance and saying this is a bill about local control. You guys keep saying I'm getting rid of local control. I'm giving back local control. Can you react to that?
Yeah, it's sort of like saying, well, I'm arming the assassin. You know, this type of local control, which would upend zoning as we know it and neighborhoods as we know it, you know, with friends like Scott Wiener, who needs enemies?
And it's interesting that he sticks to the 10 units. We couldn't understand his obsession with 10 units during the SB 50 fight. Everything came down to the core heart of it being that he wanted luxury, 10 unit luxury buildings in as many places as possible. And only recently did somebody mention, well, that's because once you hit 11 units, you have to include an affordable unit. And Scott Wiener is all about keeping out affordable units in his obsessions with these laws. And of course, the media has never explained that about Scott Wiener.
Yeah, so he skirts or he teases up to the threshold, but stays just beneath it so that he can elevate the interests of presumably his developer contributors over the interests of the public that he claims to be advocating for. Yeah, it's disturbing. It is disturbing, and 902 has a lot of, I mean, to put it mildly, flaws. It would be extremely harmful and extremely destructive.